Hello ladies and gentlemen, today we will be discussing Tartaria and the theory of giants. Now for those unaware, Tartaria is something that has been made up in the last few years, in the last few decades, by thousands of conspiracy theorists who have made the claim that there was once an ancient civilization that had mastered many different abilities. This civilization apparently wiped out by a giant mud flood sometime in the early 20th century, and this civilization was responsible for many grand buildings you see nowadays. Um, these days, right? Grand, huge, intricate structures, mainly seen in European cities, the old towns of European cities. Many of these grand buildings have in the last few decades mysteriously, as they like to say, burnt down. Now, it is a bit suspicious how most of these grand, huge structures have always been able to burn down, but I don't think it's as conspiratorial as much as they are just old buildings that are not properly fireproof. But in today's video, I'm not here to talk about Tartaria. I must admit, I am not a firm believer of the theory of the existence of the Tartarian Empire. I do use, when talking about that architecture style, I do use the term Tartarian architecture. Alternatively, another word for it could be used Gothic architecture, but Tartarian architecture is what I use to describe that kind of architecture. In case anyone's confused, I'll link some put some links in the description to the buildings or websites that talk about Tartarian architecture, so you guys will know what I'm talking about. But here today we are to talk about giants. That is something that conspiracy theorists latch onto, that there were giants in Tartaria. You see these grand structures with doors or windows or walkways or whatever that are huge compared to the average person. Now, we humans in the last thousands of years have been growing ever so slightly taller and taller and taller. And you can see that in history and with buildings. For example, a lot of buildings in southern Italy that were built in the last maybe 200 or 300 years, if you go around those buildings, you'll notice they are very short, they are very small, the walkways are very small. When I am 6'5", which is about 205 centimeters, and walking through the old towns of those southern Italian cities, you feel it. I can feel it. Anyone who's tall can feel it. You can feel how low everything is, how short everything is, because the people back then were shorter. The people now are obviously a bit taller. And that's what I mean. There are today a lot of people who are world record holders at being tall. There's not a lot of people there's not a lot of people, but there are people, and they can go up to 3 meters tall. I believe in the 30s there was someone called, I think, Woodrow Wilson, who was something like 280 or 290 centimeters tall. Now, imagine that in the 1800s, 1700s, or maybe even early 1900s, in rural places where everyone is short. When someone comes in who is a world record holder, or who would be a world record holder today, who's like 260 or 280 centimeters tall, walks in while everyone else is about 1.5 meters shorter, it's no wonder that people are going to interpret that as giants exist. And of course, people back then were shorter, and even today I'm tall, but even now I see several people throughout my day that are taller than me, right? Now, like I said before, imagine that in the 1700s when people in general were a bit shorter. Imagine being back then someone like that, seeing someone who's like 250 centimeters plus. It's no wonder they're going to interpret that, and did interpret that, as those people are giants. And that's what I mean when I say to these conspiracy theorists who like to make the claim that giants existed. in the age of Tartaria that were also victims of the mythical mud flood. These conspiracy theorists don't really delve too deeply into what this mud flood is. They say it's some mud flood that somehow covered all of these old buildings, all of these tall people, all of these magical abilities I had. A lot, like the main theory or conspiracy theory behind the Tartarian Empire is that they were able to master electricity. And they do that because most of the buildings of Tartarian architecture all have like spires on them, and that's the basis they use, that the Tartarians must have had some kind of mythical abilities like that. And the reasoning that these conspiracy theorists give as to why they were wiped out, they say they were wiped out by the oil tycoons because they harnessed these technologies that were going to cost these oil tycoons, money. Now, I don't see how a bunch of oil tycoons could somehow summon a mud flood. That's what I mean. I don't fully believe in the Tartarian architecture theory. I do think it is weird how people back then in the 17, 18, or early 1900s were able to build these huge intricate structures. You see photos of these huge buildings finished back then, like in the 1800s. And next to it, you will see a bunch of people in buggies and horses and stuff like that walking around. And it does make one think how the fuck they were able to build it. And there aren't many photos of these grand structures under construction, nor are there really many paintings. But I don't know. I personally don't believe too much in these crackhead theories. I mean, I don't want to be rude, but they are kind of crackhead theories. Come on, a mud flood, mythical lightning abilities. Other people say aliens built these Tartarian architecture style buildings. You hear that a lot with aliens. Aliens built these buildings. Aliens built the Great Wall of China. Aliens built the pyramids. It's a lot of aliens always. And they never really delved too much into what these aliens are or what their motives were. I guess they came down to Earth for about 5 minutes, figured, let's just build some huge structure and just fuck off again. I don't know. I think it's a bunch of gobbledygook. Bunch of hogwash. But yeah. Imagine, but I got a bit off track. Let's go back to the main point. Giants back then. It wouldn't have been giants. It would have just been very tall people who, compared to the shorter people back then, the average shorter people, would have been seen as giants. So that's that. That's my theory on them. If you guys are watching this and you are conspiracy theorists who believe in the whole Tartarian architecture thing, and if you've done a lot of research on it, or what you call research, please comment on this video and explain to me why I'm wrong. Because I would like to see what your reasoning for this is. Because, like I said, I believe it's a bunch of hogwash. I believe it's just a bunch of people who were much taller than the average person back then, and those people interpreted that as, giants. Like I said, back then people were shorter. The average person back then was maybe 170, 165 centimeters. So if they saw someone that was 120 centimeters taller than them, obviously they'd think it's giants. But, Now, granted, that doesn't necessarily exactly explain why the buildings on these Tartarian architecture style buildings all have like these huge stores and stuff that are even for people who are 3 meters tall. Well, I don't know why I talk like there are people who are 3 meters tall. There's only a few, but even for people who are 3 meters tall, those stores are too big. But I don't know. Like I said before, I don't believe in the whole mud flood alien theory. I do believe it is a bit suspicious how a lot of these grand structures were able to have burned down in the last few years, and it's always burning down. It's always something like that. It's always either an earthquake or they burn down. There's so many cases where they just burn down. For example, there was a Tartarian architectural style building in Switzerland, which was the old station in Lucerne, which was burned down in the 70s. You know, there's a lot of suspiciousness behind that, but that's not something I want to talk about on this channel. There's already thousands of conspiracy theorists who have touched on that, and I don't think we'll ever know the truth. But, you know, that's my theory on giants. And like I said before, if there are conspiracy theorists who do this stuff on the Tartarian Empire watching this, please give your opinions or give your reasoning as to why you think giants existed. I would really like to know what is up there with that, you know. But anyways, I think I've done enough yapping about that. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.